putting it on your molar, and let's see.
I just blew mine. I recycled it.
You recycled it. I did mine too.
And what you're tasting for is it harsh and bitter, or is it, you know, a little softer? Mine were pretty. Mine were okay. The other thing, very subtle that you look for is whether the seed separates itself from all the pulp. If it does, and these all did. I think everybody's did, yeah.
Yep. Getting close, huh?
That's a kind of qualitative indication of ripeness too. So what do you think? Should we harvest these on Tuesday? All right, let's do it. Coming 7 in the morning?
Yeah, we'll be
Okay. So we'll harvest this is about 6 tons of grapes. We'll get a crew of a half a dozen guys to come in. They pick faster than you can imagine. We're just trying to keep up with them, and we'll process that all on Tuesday. Now let's look at our Cabernet Franc too. Same program here. Now you're an expert. You can see where the birds have gotten some, and the deer have gotten some. It's a race against nature here all the time. And for me, I'm getting good flavors. There's good potential on it. It's not quite as far advanced as it's not supposed to be. We're about 2 weeks away from harvesting on this. The seeds separate, but I've got one that's bright green and one that's sort of medium brown.
Mine are a little browner, but I took the biggest plumpest looking grape.
Yeah, yeah. So when you go back home and you tell everybody, you can say, see if you can get this raised down. It's really good in a bar. You know, the bricks was good. That's the percent sugar. And the pH was good. That's the level of acidity. But the qualitative maturity wasn't quite there yet. Yeah. That's what we say to each other anyway. So
bricks or sugar.
bricks is sugar. Bricks, B-R-I-X, is basically the sugar content. So the way this works out here is after harvest, we'll just let these rest, and then we'll start pruning, which is really one of the most important steps in February. And what we'll do, let me see if I see a good example. This is probably, yeah, this is a pretty good example. What we'll do is, you see how this arm here is tied with a piece of plastic tie? Yeah, that'll disintegrate. What we'll do in February is we'll come and we'll cut right here, and we'll take this entire system off, put it on the ground, and we'll take this shoot here, and we'll lay it down in the position that this was before, and then we'll retie it, a new tie, okay? And then what'll happen is the buds that will become these shoots next year that have grapes on them are already basically embedded in here, so they're ready to go for next year. So we'll take all of this off, lay this down and tie it, and then these buds will come up and become the shoots and have the grapes on them again. So it's like an annual renewal process. So we're thinking, when we're setting up the canopy this year, we're thinking about making sure we have a good shoot here to use for next year. We're also thinking 2 years out about where we're going to get our renewal sort of back in here.
What did you say you were doing with the one that's already there?
We'll pull it out of the trellis, and we'll just put it down on the ground, and we'll take them all out of the
I mean, you'll
the
cut it
old
off.
wood. Cut it off.
I mean, it's just dead wood.
It's dead wood,
Yeah,
old
okay.
wood, and we'll take it out of the vineyard. It helps keep the vineyard clean from wood-type diseases
It keeps
too.
new growth coming. And
Yeah. So then in about April, mid-April or so, these buds will break. Bud break, it's a big time of year for us. That starts the little pushing of the new shoots. By about the end of May, it's up to here. End of June, it's up to here. These are flexible wires, so we use them to put them in place to hold the canopy going straight up. And then once it gets up here, these tendrils will grab onto the top wire and it'll just sort of pull itself straight to the sky. The fruit comes on in probably June sometime, and then June, July, and August, it's a race against nature and hope for good weather, which for us is hot and dry. We'd be happy if it never rained, because you get a lot of molds and mildews in here that you're looking at. So,
Have you had trouble with that before?
oh, every year we have trouble.
It's Virginia.
Absolutely, it's Virginia. Yeah, definitely. Those wimps in California, it never rains out there in the summer. They got it easy. We do a lot of things to try to adjust for the high humidity and the rain and everything. For example, one of the reasons that all these grapes are so exposed here is that we take off all the leaves that are below that by hand. We do everything by hand, and that gets more sunshine in there, gets more airflow so that they can dry out in the morning and so forth. Also happens to look pretty nice.
It
These
does
little
look nice.
grapes, doesn't it? Yeah. So if you walk up and down doing this, you're walking 10 miles, and you go up and down every row each side, all done by hand.
Wow.
This year we had so much rain that we actually hedge off all the extra foliage. We cut it so it ends up being sort of a flat panel like this, on top and on the inside as well. We normally do that 2 times a year. We did it 6 times this year. So it's been a little crazy. The other thing you'll see is, in some of these rows at least, maybe it's all disintegrated, is you'll see a bunch of fruit on the ground.
I saw that.
Yeah. And we actually, the vine will try to put out more fruit than it can really ripen to our quality specification anyway. So another thing that we do by hand is walk through and drop some of it to the ground. We probably take off 1/3 of the crop that's here. It's funny when people pull into the parking lot in like August when we're doing this, they see us out here, you can see they're pulling in, watching us, walking through here, cutting fruit to the ground, shaking their head, going, this isn't going to be any good. These guys obviously don't know what they're doing. They're taking perfectly good fruit and wasting it, you know. Well, we could grow, 50% more than we do here, but it wouldn't be at the level that I want it to be. So we sacrifice some of it for what remains on the vine so we can really get the high bricks, the good pH, all that stuff, right? Yeah.
So are you discriminating what you drop? I mean, you're
Yeah.
looking at it and...
Yeah, we're looking for stuff that maybe has already started to rot a little
Right.
bit,
Okay.
or hasn't turned color as well, or the birds have gotten into it. We also do it to look for places where it's too crowded. Now, of course, you can't see that right now.
Right.
But the after, see how every cluster pretty much has a unique place and space. When I work with people out here, I say it's like dangling earrings. They all want to have a place to be able to move and groove. So if they're all clumped together, or if they're caught in the wire, or if they're touching each other, even this one, I just picked it up and it's touching the shoot, and it's wet on the backside. So that's not as good as we'd want it. So, or it's constant pursuit of perfection here. It's impossible, but whatever.
So when you drop, do you drop whole bunches, or do you sometimes cut clusters
Yeah.
out of bunches?
Well, cluster and bunch is the same thing for me anyway.
Okay.
It's this
Okay.
piece, but usually we'll take the whole part off. But sometimes, talk about ridiculous fine tuning, is we'll go through and we'll cut off a little shoulder.
Right. Okay.
'Cause
That's
the shoulder is touching the grape next to it, and it's not giving it enough room, and they're gonna
so.
result
I would
in
have called that a
moisture and rot.
cluster, but you're saying that
This
this
is cluster.
This is a cluster
Yeah,
and a bunch.
or
Same
a bunch,
word.
same thing. And this is a shoulder.
Shoulder.
On it, just a
Oh,
little
okay.
side. So we'll reach in
Gotcha.
there and just cut off that little tiny bit.
Gotcha.
Now I'll guarantee you that Ernesto and Julio aren't doing any of this.
No.
They're tonning it out. So when you look at something like a boutique Virginia vineyard, it's a completely different product. You certainly can get lots of bulk wine in the grocery store. They make wine all over the world, but this is sort of the super small time, super boutique labor of love where, I got into this as sort of a hobby gone wild, temporary insanity sort of thing. So I'm not interested in trying to just make, mediocre wine. I'm trying to make whatever I can that's really as good as it possibly can be, and that means, doing all the hand steps and sacrificing fruit, all that kind of stuff. So you'll see what you think. It's still different every year, but kind of a fun thing. Questions about this?
So it takes, how many guys you had to clear these vines?
We have a full-time vineyard manager and a part-time assistant.
Oh yeah, just
Yeah.
2 guys. Huh?
Yeah. And you guys might have seen him just when we left. That's Julian. He's from Bordeaux,
Oh yeah.
and he grew up with a vineyard in his family and everything. It's in his blood and so forth. So he's been with us for this is his 6th year, 7th year. So now they are his vines. So he's always concerned if I'm ever going out in the vines, because they're his. He's 31. So, well, and the interesting thing is, like in Bordeaux, he would be a junior cellar rat, bottom of the totem pole assistant, in a huge chateau operation, and he's been that. But over here, he can be, king of the hill in a small little operation. So it's really great for people. It gives them an opportunity to have a lot more responsibility and so forth. So.
How long before the vines bore fruit so you could make wine?
Yeah, the 3rd year you get a
Third.
little bit, and you don't get up to full production till the 5th year, maybe the 6th year, and that's if you don't make mistakes. And I made lots of mistakes in doing
Yeah,
this.
we had 7. We had 7 years.
Yeah, you get you might get a ton
I
an
don't
acre
know.
the
I
first
didn't
year,
think that.
2 tons, 2.5 to 3 in the 5th year or so. But yeah, figure a year's worth of mistakes. We've had to replant a lot of vines. You get vine death, you get issues, all kinds of things. Nature is totally out to get us out here. I'll give you an example. Don't get me going because I got about 50 examples. But you know when I said we lay this cane down and the shoots, the buds break and start to come out, there's an insect called the grape flea beetle. And its favorite diet, its tenderloin, is the swollen bud that's just starting to push up. So as soon as that comes out, the grape flea beetle wants to come out there and he'll drill a hole in the center of it as his snack. And that will, of course, eliminate that bud for the whole year. So then if you survive him, then when the shoot gets out to about an inch or two, there's something in the ground called a climbing cutworm. And he's got a saw on the end of his nose, and he'll climb up the trunk, out here, out to the end, and saw off the 1-inch shoot and drop it to the ground to feed the family.
Oh my
Is he the
So-
same as the tomato cutworm?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, because that sounds like him.
Specialized for grape.
Yeah,
Prefers wine to tomatoes. I guess.
gotcha.
Must be French
Well,
instead of
I
Italian.
bet if you had
I don't
tomatoes,
know.
he'd go for those too.
Yeah. So, you know, and that's just April and May.
Yeah.
We won't take you through the whole litany of the rest of the season. Just consider it a miracle we ever get anything in a bottle. In
So how do you
Virginia,
prevent
so.
that?
We use well, there should be a better term, but a biological agent that changes the pH of the environment actually, so it makes it kind of inhospitable for them. They don't want to eat. They don't want to be here. Kind of like turning it into a bad Mexican restaurant for
You
a few
spray
weeks.
that or
You know,
fog
You
it,
don't
or
wanna-
how do you do that?
we do it by spray.
Spray.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's lots of other materials that you have to use to prevent diseases and molds and mildews and rots. And there's 2 kinds of mildews. One likes cold, wet weather. There's another one. You know what it likes?
hot dry.
Hot, dry weather. Yeah. So you got some kind of mildew going on all the time. But after a while, you learn how to deal with it, and that's been part of the fun for me. When we started, I didn't know anything about what I was doing. Now I feel like I know a little bit, but I'm still learning. But we've gotten to the point now where we actually teach a course in this. And people come out here. There's a lot of landowners locally that want to plant grapes. And I say, don't do it until you take our course. It's part of a program at Piedmont, Virginia Community College. And they have a bunch of seminars and stuff, one-day ones. But mine is a in the vines one. So if you sign up for our program, you adopt a row of vines and you manage it for the whole season.
Neat.
From pruning all the way through to harvest.
Yeah,
Really?
that's
So
great.
some of the guys in the class will be coming on Tuesday to harvest the vineyard.
Oh yeah.
And at the end, half of them proceed, and they feel like they know what they're doing. They usually proceed on a lot smaller scale than they'd originally wanted to. And the other half say, I learned this is way too much
Yeah.
work, so I'm just going to continue to be a consumer. And that's okay too. You'd rather have that than already have all this in the ground to do it. Other questions? Let's go eat and drink.
Yeah.
All right.